different experiences. We're going to gloss over that for now. And Asia, big place, gloss over that for now. We're kind of thinking of, say, China and India. We had some of those statistics I showed you last time showing that, say, in 1980, income levels or poverty rates were pretty similar across sub-Saharan Africa, India, and China. So just think that, several decades ago, income levels are similar. But let's make the assumption that for whatever reason, A is higher in Asia than Africa. There's better technology, there are better institutions, there's more political stability, whatever it is that drives productive use of inputs, which is what A means. So we have these multiple plots here. We're going to assume depreciation is the same, but A is different in Asia and Africa. So you see the black line for Asia and Africa, the same for the red line, the savings line. So that's just going to yield two different steady states. So let's think of the sort of 1960 to 2013 growth trajectories of sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. So we saw, starting in 1960 to about the mid-70s, there was some moderate growth in Africa, and then it kind of flatlined. Went to zero, maybe it was even slightly negative. Well, what that means is, sub-Saharan Africa started poor, but its steady state income level was like a little richer than that, not much. So it grew for a little while, and it was at steady state, which is zero growth. If the Asian countries had higher A's, technologies, institutions, etc., to start with, they would have kept growing. They would just keep growing to a much higher steady state, and given recent Chinese and Indian growth rates, one would think that they're still getting to that steady state. They haven't reached it yet. So that very simple point that in this basic framework, everything else could be the same, K, D, alpha. If for whatever reason capital and human resources are used more efficiently in Asia than Africa, it'll just grow faster for longer and reach higher income levels. Now, why? We talked about, I've just been focusing on A. We made the point before about S and S not being the key driver. I'm just sort of restating it on this slide. When we think about these differences, thinking about differences in savings rates alone really can't get us too far. There are limits to what higher savings rates can do. Can't save more than 100%. You save a lot, so you have less consumption. So the Easterly article makes this point, which is really the consensus in economics and development economics, economic growth, that technological improvements, broadly defined in this A term, are really the key driver of long-term growth. If we're really going to think about differences in growth rates across decades between sub-Saharan Africa and Asia, we have to be focused on these factors. Hey, saving matters. I got caught again. Oh, God. Let me say that. Saving matters. From year to year, if you do save a little bit more, you're going to have more investment and more growth. But it's only going to take you so far. Investing in human capital is going to help promote growth, just like saving helps promote growth. But at the end of the day, if those inputs, human and physical capital inputs, are not well utilized, in other words, A is very low, you're not going to be productive even if you have a lot of education. We talked about these massive increases in schooling in sub-Saharan Africa over the past few decades, during a period of decades where growth was zero, despite having a much better educated population. Education alone didn't seem to be enough. Inputs alone don't seem to be enough. We have to think about how all these factors are utilized, how well they're utilized. So that's the insight of the Easterly piece, which really reflects the consensus in economics today. But yeah, we shouldn't just think of technology as the iPad 2. We should think of technology very broadly defined. Technology is how you use inputs. How efficiently do you use inputs? Is there just lots of capital that's misused? Is there a lot of human resources that's underutilized? Are the incentive structures in your society set up to lead to effective utilization of resources? When people talk about the big productivity increases, say in China, after 1978, after the major political transition that China experienced and all the economic reforms, many people point to the fact that a lot of really important inputs, whether it was land in rural areas, which was being farmed at that point in cooperatives, which were or co-ops, which were very unproductive, communal farming, and a lot of physical capital in China was being utilized in parastatal or state-owned enterprises that were also quite using capital quite inefficiently. So basically, de facto land privatization is basically a consensus. There's a consensus that was very important for boosting productivity in the countryside in terms of Chinese agriculture. So the land was the same. From one day to the next, the land was the same. The farmers had the same skill. But before 1978, whatever you farmed went into a common pot. It was taken from you, so people just didn't work very hard on their farms. Or they'd have to be forced to work hard, or they tried to hide production from the leaders of their production unit. But if you had private land rights and you could sell your produce on the market, you worked really hard because you got the incentive to do so. So we can't ignore incentives, and the same thing would go in other sectors as well. Okay. There's a clicker question coming up soon, so you may want to take out your clicker, ponder it. So in this model, imagine the case. So far I've been talking about, K was the same in Africa and Asia, but A was different. Now let's flip everything on its head. Imagine across all countries in the world, A was the same. But what differs is K. So different societies have different levels of capital per worker, this little K. The US has a lot, Brazil is somewhere in between, China's a little bit less, Kenya is less, etc. So there's this sort of ranking of capital per worker, but everybody has the same A. In that case, which countries have the highest returns to investment? Well, I say here, poor countries do. Why is that? Yeah. I wasn't thinking in terms of number of people. There's the same A though. Can anybody build on that point? It has to do with the production function, the shape of the production function. What's in the back? Exactly. So if I'm really poor, I'm at that point where it's really steep. So every additional unit of capital just buys me lots of output. And if I'm a very wealthy country, the returns are smaller to capital. So new markets, lots of opportunities, big untapped potential, a unit of capital can have a big effect. Less so in the US. So this would suggest investing in poor countries is what we should do. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Is it necessarily the case? Because I've seen some literature that says like...
Oh, wait, don't say anything. Click your question. Strike that from the record, whatever you just said. Okay, so this is the question, and I want you guys to go in. In recent decades, has the bulk of global capital flowed to the richest 20% of world population, the middle 60%, or the lowest 20%? We already know what the model predicts, right? We just went through that. I just want to know if you guys think the model's right. And if not, is it A or B? Let's take like a minute. If you want to chat with your neighbor, please go ahead. Okay, 5 more seconds. Get your vote in. A couple more people. I'll give you 5 more seconds. Someone just. Anybody not click in yet? Okay, so let me close the poll. So what does it look like? Okay, so you guys are on the ball here. Some people said B, but the answer is A. But the vast majority of capital flows go from rich countries to rich countries. So we hear a lot about how a lot of capital is going to Brazil and China. That's true, but way times more capital goes from Europe to the US, or Europe to Japan, or US to Europe, etc. That's actually where the bulk of foreign investment goes. And so this was some data from the 90s from one of the readings. So the vast majority of investment actually goes from rich countries to rich countries. Now that's changing, and these numbers would look different in later periods, in part because of a pattern I'll show you in a few slides about Chinese external investment, which is actually increasing incredibly rapidly. So things are changing, but in the 90s at least, so in the sort of dark days for African growth, sub-Saharan Africa was getting about 1% of global private investment, even though it was a massive continent with hundreds of millions of poor people. So if only those A's were equalized, that's where the capital would be going, the huge returns. The fact that it wasn't going there tells you A in sub-Saharan Africa must have been pretty low. If you have that low capital with the potential for high returns and no capital is going there, probably the returns are low. So again, we've talked about some of these more evidence that K can't explain African performance alone. We talked about education not being enough. There was big improvements in education for a few decades, but not much in terms of growth. Now, the caveat to that point is, you educate kids today, and it takes 15 years for them to enter the labor force. So it could be that some of the growth we saw in sub-Saharan Africa starting around 2000 was the result of educational investments during the lost decades of the 80s and 90s, for sure. So maybe there was just a time lag. So it clearly could play a role. And later on in the course, we'll talk about all the other social, political benefits education could have beyond growth rates. So education can matter in many, many different ways, and we'll talk about that. But in the if we're looking with blinders at growth, like this model, maybe it isn't too critical. Beyond that, I just mentioned how solo private capital was going to sub-Saharan Africa, but there was actually investment, and there were international flows, but typically in the form of foreign aid, or budget support, or project support. So there was a lot of money going into building roads and power plants and other large projects, as well as other forms of general budget support in sub-Saharan Africa in the 80s and 90s. On average, during that period, foreign aid inflows were about 10% of GDP, and in some countries much more. But 10% of GDP is a lot, and that wasn't enough to sort of kickstart growth. So big investments in education in the 80s and 90s, and lots of foreign aid inflows didn't lead to lots of growth. You need more than that to grow. So what can explain the turnaround? If we are going to focus on institutions, A, what changed without A? This is going to be one of the topics of the course. If we want to focus on institutions and technology, incentives, politics, and how sort of resources are utilized, we have to really wrap our minds around a lot of different things. So just going back to our simple example here, let's do the following thought experiment. Rather than comparing Asia and Africa, let's just compare Africa in 1980 to Africa in 2013. And let's just say for whatever reason, to be determined, so we'll talk about it in the next couple months of the course, institutions improved. The utilization of physical and human resources improved. Property rights protections improved. All these other things improved. Well, then we would expect sub-Saharan Africa to grow. So maybe now we're in this period. Maybe now we're in a new period where sub-Saharan Africa is moving to a new steady state model, reflecting A, the more effective use of resources in African societies. Let me pause for a second. Any thoughts or comments on this overall framework? Yeah.
The rates, I think we should also consider like a risk situation because before the crisis,
Yeah.
most of the capital went from developing countries to emerging countries.
Uh-huh.
Those capital stays in those countries only for a little time, so the other countries stabilize, and then they go back into the emerging countries for more risky.
And maybe have a higher return, you're saying. Yeah, so people talk about this very sort of like hot capital or hot money that sort of flows around. And even with all that funding, even with all that investment, the amount of foreign direct investment between the rich countries is still much more than from rich to poor. But there have been periods where there's been lots of optimism and big increases in investment in poor countries. But as you said, often those flows get reversed very quickly. So it can be a very destabilizing force in some cases. Okay, I want to start the discussion of Asia and Africa here. And this is different. Instead of saying, well, Asia had this A, Africa had that A, and they're kind of in isolation from each other, kind of growing, we're going to think about how growth in Asia may have affected Africa. And we'll start the discussion today if I wrap up next time, so maybe 6 minutes or something, 5 minutes. And what I want to do is contrast the kinds of internal factors, like these institutional reforms that are embodied in A, from external international factors, like the availability of foreign direct investment and the targeting of foreign direct investment. That's one sort of external factor. Another sort of external factor that we're not going to model directly, but you could think of in related terms, and we'll come back to, is the effect of Asian growth on global prices, like global commodity prices. So those are going to be the two main external factors I want you to think about. How China, say, going from having a really economically disastrous regime pre-1978 to a much more successful regime, at least in terms of growth rates after 1978, how that affected Africa by changing global investment flows and commodity prices. Those are the external factors. So keep those two in mind. We're mainly going to focus on the investment for now. Okay, click a question. This is an opinion question. There's no right or wrong answer to this question, or at least no research that I know of. But I want to get people's sense. And let me put the poll up here. On net, has the big increase in growth in Asia, both China and India, since the 1980s, on net, overall, served to promote development in sub-Saharan Africa? Or hinder economic growth? Promote economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa? Hinder economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa? Or are the kind of interactions between these regions basically quite distinct, and whatever effects there might be would be small? That's the kind of third point. It hasn't really had a meaningful impact. So those are A, B, and C. What are on net the effects? Yeah. I'm thinking long run from 1978 to 2013. 35 years. Okay, there's still a lot of people that need to click in. Let's just go another 20 seconds. Yeah, discuss with your neighbor for like 30 seconds. Okay, 5 more seconds. Click in if you haven't clicked in. Okay, let's see what it looks like. There's actually a pretty good spread here. So most folks actually are in the A camp making the, oops, what happened there? Oh, where did you go, clicker? Hold on, I lost it. There we go. A was promote, 63%. B, hinder, 26%, 10% sort of neutral. So I think the kind of overall view is that it's overall beneficial, but a number of people disagree. So just in the last couple minutes, let's start talking through why that might be. And I want to focus on one channel in particular to start, and then we'll kind of finish off next time. Imagine the following, very stylized world here. Imagine in addition to the capital we talked about so far, these internal savings, there's some amount of capital X that is foreign investment from rich countries to poor countries. We're going to call it X. The owners of that capital are trying to find the place with the highest return to their capital. That's going to be their only goal. They want to put it wherever the return is highest. Now, how is that going to affect capital accumulation? If you are the country that benefits from X, the change in capital starts looking different. If in every period you're getting X, then yeah, you have your internal savings, depreciation, but you're getting this X. So it's going to serve as some additional investment in your economy. Do you have a question?
Yeah, should you be returning the X with some interest at some point?
Yeah, we're not going to get into that. So think of this, another way to think about this is the net flow of sort of investment minus whatever is repatriated. So think of X as the net capital inflow per period, if that makes any sense. So graphically, what ends up happening is this depreciation curve, just in this very simple form, which is sort of ignoring a lot of important details, is going to shift downwards. It's not a change in slope like before, it's just a shift in intercept. So if you're getting all this kind of free capital, you're going to have more capital per worker, right? So K star is going to increase if you're getting all this free capital, taking into account the interest rate you have to pay on it, let's just say. Because I want people just to stare at this for 1 second. Does it make sense? This is kind of the algebraically simplest way I thought of introducing this idea. Okay, well, we're out of time, so next time we'll talk about the implications for Africa versus Asia. Thanks.